Warning, what you're about to hear was intended to make you laugh a lot. If you listen to the show and feel inspired, then that's awesome. But if you're easily offended or just can't take a joke, you should turn this off right now. Otherwise, turn this shit up and hang on. Welcome to the Get Up. Welcome to another episode of The Get Up. I'm your host, JP. Joining me today is Nicole. Nicole, I didn't catch your last name yet. Roberson. Nicole Roberson. All right. And Nicole has a very, very interesting business that she is doing. She's pursuing, right? Obviously, it's not your full-time gig.
Right.
Because we actually work, funny enough, at the same place. But go ahead and tell us what it is that you do.
Yeah, so I design and paint what I call wooden keepsake boxes under the title Stash Books. So they are kind of modeled after famous novels, or I've done a lot of like pet memoirs for custom, get a book of your pet. Some anniversary presents with photos of like engagement sessions for your wedding keepsake book and things like that.
So you made one for me, which I super appreciate, with the
Yeah.
logo for the show. I'm holding it up to the cameras, but it's a nice little wood book. It's got my title on the side here, my logo on the front. I love the tell your story with laughter.
Yeah.
And it's a really cool idea, and I want to back up and just talk about how I met you, right?
Yeah.
So and I don't know if you've ever been to that store, Unplug and Paint, that's in downtown Clawson.
I haven't actually.
It's right. It's a craft store for makers. It's right on 14. Mm-hmm. Before there's an actual fancy restaurant that's attached to it too. But my wife's aunt and mother own that store, so we actually have a booth in there. She does like sewing and stuff like that, and I do the wood burning and everything. But there's a ton of makers in there, so if you're looking for a physical location, you might want to go talk to them.
Love that.
But the city that they're in, Clawson, Michigan, was having a festival of sorts, and they had a whole bunch of different vendors set up, and you were one of them. And you had a lot of really cool books. And I think when I had talked to you, you said like you just like to make books that are like your childhood favorites, and you would just recreate them. And you do a good job of recreating like the covers and how they look.
Thank you.
And it was a really, really neat idea. I can see that totally fitting in on like a bookshelf or just being like a display thing. So that was how we ended up meeting. So, and I appreciate you coming on the show.
Of course.
The whole point is to try to talk to people that are, doing something different than just the normal 9-to-5, trying to do something they're passionate about. So what got you into all this?
Oh, man. Layers of things. So
Let's unwrap the layers.
Yeah.
Like an ogre.
I guess it starts, I used to be an English teacher, a high school English teacher. So books have always been a big part of my life. When I quit teaching, I really struggled with not being involved in literature for so much time that I'd spent before. And I was looking for kind of a creative outlet other than, I was in an emotional place where I was not reading as much as I used to. And I just couldn't pick up a book and dig into that emotional experience. It was too much to handle at that time. So I started recreating book covers of my favorite books.
Now, when you say recreating, were you talking just like on paper you just started drawing, or did you automatically, you're like,
I
wood?
went straight to the wood. I went straight to the book. I just kind of stumbled upon the idea. I saw the blank book and I was like, that would be super cool to be like an inspiration of my favorite book. So I just kind of drew it up and painted it. And I was like, that looks pretty awesome. I'm really excited about that. And I showed some friends and family, and they were like, oh, could you try this book? Could you do this one? And it just kind of expanded from there.
All right. Now, you used to be a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
What so obviously that was kind of like what spurred this.
Yeah.
What led you getting out of teaching, if you don't mind?
Oh man,
because it's a common story. Like I know quite a few people that were like, I used to be a teacher.
Yeah, it's a tough environment,
especially now.
Especially, yeah. So I quit teaching the first year at the end of the school year when the pandemic started.
Okay.
So I felt so disconnected from all the things I loved about teaching, which were seeing the kids and like having those casual conversations that you just get from being in the classroom, seeing that growth and development. Everything was virtual. I barely met with my classes. Everything was just online. We didn't know how to do virtual school yet.
Right.
So
that was a big figuring it out thing. What grade, age?
I taught high school, so mostly.
Oh Lord.
9th and 10th grade.
I give any teacher a lot of respect because, one, I could not imagine sitting in a room full of little kids. That's like a nightmare, right? Just because of all that energy would just wear me out. But then I really couldn't handle sitting in a room full of teenagers. All that sarcasm and...
That's what I loved. Like, the idea of being with elementary kids absolutely terrifies me. I actually...
I mean, there's a reason those kids are in so many horror movies, right?
Oh my gosh. I just don't even know how. I've never been around little kids too much. So, like, I don't even know where to start with elementary. Okay. So, I actually ran for the YMCA one summer. I was like, I'm going to be bored teaching, not teaching in the summer. So, I'll get a summer job.
Right.
I was wrong. But I was the director for a preschool day camp at the YMCA. And that was the toughest job I've ever had. I had no idea what I was getting into. So that experience with little kids was enough. I was like
to scare you away from little kids forever.
Yeah, begging to go back to high school at the end of the summer.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one. Sorry, the dogs. That's one that's always been interesting to me. Like how you decide what grade you want to teach. I wasn't sure if like. It's like, all right, I'm a teacher. Where are you going to put me? Or if you like, so when you went to school, did you do like, were your studies focused on like more like teenager development?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So English is the reason I became a teacher, reading and all
I love reading too, but English was not like my favorite subject.
I love grammar rules. I love writing. I love everything about language.
Okay.
I mean, my favorite part of reading, like a lot of people read for the story,
right?
Like the adventure of it. I read for the language. I just really love beautiful wording, which sounds so lame now that I say it out loud.
You're a word nerd.
I am, just like something that's written so eloquently, or just like, so it gets you so invested just by the way it's written. I just find that fascinating.
I find it very interesting, and it is funny because you can totally see the difference between just different writing styles, right? Mm-hmm. Like you read, I'm always in awe when I read stuff like even like one of my favorite authors is Stephen King, and a lot of people could probably say that, right? Mm-hmm. But like the level of detail when he like paints a picture and like, but then you read something like, okay, no judgment here, and this was not by choice, but I was asked to read the Twilight series.
I knew that's where you were going.
How did you know? So because she got into them and like just gobbled those books up within like 2 weeks, like read all of them. Yeah. I was like, you gotta read them. You gotta read them.
I did the same thing.
And it was funny just seeing the difference in no shade towards Stephanie Meyer. That's her name, right?
Yeah. It's not the same.
Make your money, but it is not this. There is a clear difference in writing level. And then what was funny was she didn't do 50 Shades of Grey, right? No, someone else did 50 Shades of Grey.
I haven't read it.
And I haven't read it either, but I've seen excerpts of it.
Okay.
And I'm like, this can't be real. Like, you did not really write this stuff, did you? Like,
and you see, like, you see people, or you used to see people reading it everywhere.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know if that's a public book for you, but thinking of Stephen King writing, I'm a scaredy cat. I literally could not get through a Stephen King novel, but his book on writing, game changer.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like just enough of experts from his novels that like I don't get too scared. I can handle it. But just the way he goes about crafting a novel and digging into a moment Oh, I just love it. I love it.
So what's being a scaredy cat,
a
proclaimed scaredy cat, what Stephen King books have you tried to read?
I don't even know that I've tried. Like On Writing I read that back in high school the first time, and I remember the excerpts being like haunting for me. Like,
so one I'll recommend.
Okay.
That's not scary.
Okay.
Right, but it's and what's funny is you can clearly see the leaps and bounds from the first one to just the second one because a lot of time passed. I think he started the first one like in the 70s, and then the second one like he started later in the 80s, and you can see the growth in just his writing style. But the Gunslinger, the Dark Tower series, which I have all of them, they're great. I just heard that Netflix might be doing a TV show. That, you know, it's one of those things that, like, I know they tried to do the movie with Idris Elba, and I didn't care about the character, like, changing race or anything. I don't care about any of that stuff. That's fine, whatever. Just don't murder the story. And I heard such bad things about the movie that I've not yet seen it because I wasn't really going to pay to go see it.
Okay.
But it's one of those things that's so long and so detailed that cramming it into movies wouldn't do it justice. Yeah. It's one of those things, and I think that's what's cool with television now. Is you're seeing more and more of that, right?
Kind of that miniseries
these miniseries that are basically a long-ass movie, right? Which brings up whole other jokes about like, 3-hour movie, I can't sit through that, but I'll binge 4 hours worth of a TV show like, back to back to back.
I'm definitely guilty of that. I like a movie, I'm going to fall asleep for sure. There's no way I'm getting through a movie, but I have that 5-minute break in between a miniseries.
Right.
Doable.
Are you still watching? Yeah, I have to press the yes button. Yeah, I'm still watching.
Yeah.
So I think that for a Stephen King one, for someone that, you know, was impacted by his book on writing.
Yeah.
Like that might be a good one to do. Another really cool one was The Talisman that he wrote with Peter Straub.
Okay.
That's really cool. Like if you like adventurous kind of stuff too anyway, like it's fantasy kind of adventure with a little bit of scares, but it's nothing nuts.
Okay.
I read it when I was in 5th grade, and I didn't sleep for like a week. And that is still perhaps my favorite.
And didn't sleep for a week. Like I can't do anything scary.
See, I love watching scary stuff just because I love having that feeling of oh crap, because I know that it's not real, but it still gets you anyway.
Yeah.
Like any of the Paranormal Activity movies, like I've watched a lot of those just at night in the dark, and then it's like,
oh my God.
Yeah, and it's like, oh shit, because like I love when it's you're just waiting and you're watching and you're looking, where is it? Where's the thing? You know, like they'll show you the same scene over and over again, and you're like, did something change?
I'm like sweating. My hands are sweating just talking about this. Like I can't handle any of it. I love a cathartic drama. Like make me cry.
Yeah.
And I'm good, but like haunting, no.
So it's funny, my daughter is now getting into like the scarier stuff. My wife's like, yeah, no scary stuff, she hates it, but she's slowly, because I keep like, I used to have to watch stuff.
She's getting used to it.
Yeah, she's getting used to it because we do it. Yeah. Yes, for sure. Have you tried writing yourself?
Yeah, I mostly journal. Again, it's that catharsis for me. Like I use it to process moments and emotions, and God, I would never share it with anyone. But I do love the process of writing, and when I taught high school, I taught a creative writing class, so everything I asked my students to do, I would model for them. Okay. So I guess that's the most public my writing's ever been.
Okay.
But yeah, it's just so personal. I have so much respect for authors and any writer who's willing to share what they've crafted with someone. The painting is, you know, like it's personal. It's you putting yourself out there. But again, the words are just so much more vulnerable. And yeah.
For sure. And I mean, I think the words are less likely to, like, painting can be left, especially like if you're going to just like paint for yourself, right? Mm-hmm. Or if you do put it out there, can be kind of left open to interpretation, and it can impact people in many different ways.
Yeah.
Versus like words kind of have a point.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it feels like almost where like there is an intention, meaning behind it that leaves it less open for interpretation. So you're saying a lot about yourself through your writing, and that might be hard to deal with sometimes.
I think, yeah, on the flip side too, though, like, understandings can be manipulated. So your intended message is not always received.
Yeah,
so,
for sure. And when we learn that a lot as being both trainers, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, that's one of the things I hate with just text messages, emails, anything like that, just because so much gets lost. You can't tell how I'm saying something. You can't see my body language. I'm very joking, sarcastic most of the time. So it's like when I'm serious, people sometimes are like, "Oh, haha, you're fine." I'm like, "No, I was serious then." Like,
I have the same issue. I firmly believe in punctuation. As far as getting your message across, I think that's like the biggest help. But I have a very dry sense of humor, and often that gets way misinterpreted as far as like it just doesn't translate well.
So what are the things that people do nowadays in speaking or in writing that just drive you nuts?
Oh, gosh. I mean, let me count the ways, right? Like, like lack of punctuation or misused punctuation drives me crazy, like English teacher style, right? I want to get out my red pen and edit everything. The people who talk in circles. Like, I understood it the first time. We're good.
No need to keep going around it and around it.
I don't need a detour twice. Like, get straight to the point. I see that in training all the time, too. Mm-hmm. Like, you think you need to explain it better, but, like, they probably got it the first time. Like, say it once, say it clearly. We're good.
Where I struggle with is sometimes where I say it in a way that I totally understand, and most people have always gotten it. And then there's someone that's like, I still don't get it. And then I'm like, all right, how can I say this another way? Like, this worked perfect for everyone else. I got to try to figure out how to get it to you.
That's where I go with the metaphor. Like, let me.
I try to do different metaphors. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yep. I used pizza delivery for one for a long time.
That's awesome.
Because of statuses on different tracking items that they had to do, and like versus like ordered and received and stuff. I was like, ordered is you called for the pizza.
Oh gosh.
Received is you got your pizza.
Yes.
If you didn't get your pizza, it's not received, right?
That's too funny.
It was funny. And then like everybody in that area started using that analogy because
they
like,
work.
Perfect.
They work. Like. Explaining a concept is so difficult. You need something concrete to attach it to. You need something that you're familiar with to expand on that understanding. So
for sure,
sense.
So you love words, but you've never actually put any words out there. Do you see that being something that you'll explore in the future, or?
That's interesting.
I would urge you to do it. Yeah. And right now, it's easier than ever to like self-publish stuff.
Yeah, I think. My biggest obstacle when it comes to writing is obviously myself. I think most people say that.
I think most people's biggest obstacle is themselves.
Yeah.
For sure.
It's just, it's so personal. I don't know if I'm brave enough. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, I feel comfortable writing it for myself, and then I look back and reread it and cringe, So it's like, do I want anyone to read that ever? Probably not.
I have, I self-published a book on Amazon 7 years ago. Mm-hmm. So I ended up at our company. I used to do deliveries for like 10 years. Mm-hmm. And then I've always like dabbled because I love to read too. And I've always dabbled with like the idea of writing, and I've like right now I am formulating another story. I've actually got 3 in the last like two months that I'm like, I gotta write these down.
Yeah.
But this is the book that I did write is like 40 short stories, but I
love a short story.
But they're all true, so you can consume them in little bites, Yeah. But they're all true of my delivery experiences. Mm-hmm. It's called What the Truck. And it's just the wild shit that I encountered while delivering to people. And I delivered appliances and stuff for Lowe's. And right now, right? And I'm not by any means saying this is you, but all I'm saying is like, all right, I've got this lovely lady, she's all put together right now. She's got her Apple Watch on, and you could see people like this out in public or anybody that we see at work, but then they go home and their house smells like cat urine. Or there's just garbage everywhere. Like, going into someone's home is such a personal look.
It's just like writing.
And it's wild to see the difference between their outward appearance and how they live. And it's absolutely wild. I've been to enormous, rich houses, and they live like pigs. Just like, it's the craziest things I've ever seen. Cockroaches. I've been to houses where, like, this lady didn't let her dog outside. She let it in the basement.
Stop.
And that's where it went to the bathroom, was in the basement. And I had to go down there to turn water off. And the reason I know this is what she did is because the whole basement was covered in piss and shit. Like, wild stuff like this.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah. Hoarder houses. I've been to hoarder houses. I went to a house that was, they were such bad hoarders, they had a whole house for their shit.
Stop. This is stressing me out.
We were delivering windows, and we pull up to their house. They're like, no, this is going to go to our other house. And we drive to their other house, which is only like a couple blocks away. In this house, when we put the windows in, we had to find a place to put the windows, but it was just filled with shit.
It's like their stash house.
Yeah. And then it's funny, like, the lies people tell. This is one of the things that always drove me nuts. Is if you know that someone's coming over to see, like, they're going to be in your space, like, why would you not try to clean up? Like, it's wild. I mean, it's just, it always baffled me, right? So I wrote about these funny experiences, changed names, all that stuff, so, like, no one was assuming anything. But they're all 100% true stories. Not all of them are gross, right? There's funny ones, but, yeah, it's just... And it was real easy to publish. I was lucky enough that my cousin's a copy editor, so I was able to have her edit for me. But I get your point, right? Like, I look back at some of it and I'm like, I could have wrote that a little better. But, you know, it was...
like every writer has to feel that way.
It's an accomplishment to put it out there and to have had sales.
Yeah.
Right? It wasn't gangbusters by any means, but it was funny because, like, the first overseas sale, I was, like, on Facebook, international bestseller, you know, like, stuff like that. Or the first, like, 5-star review, which is probably a friend or a family member. I was like, 5 stars, just, you know, burning up the charts, just being stupid, because it really isn't. I think to date I've sold maybe 50 copies, and I put it out 7 years ago.
That's more than I've sold.
But that's the other part, is like the self-promotion.
Yeah.
And that's the harder part for me. Too. That's like, even with this, right, with doing this show, is the promotion part. I hate social media. Oh. But that's, like, the key to getting these things out there now, right? Yeah. And it's like, you could take out an ad in a paper. Who's going to read the paper? The old folks? Like, that's it, right? That's the only people that read papers nowadays. Yeah. So, and that's not maybe what my target audience is, right? But it's social media, and it's so much work. Like, I see other podcasts, and I totally respect them because they are putting out stuff. Funny memes, stuff related to their show or on brand every day. 10 posts a day, stuff like that. And I just don't got that energy.
I feel the same way. I feel like once I started to think about the need to post on social media for this, my brain shifted where I'm like, okay, looking for opportunities to take pictures. And I'm not a picture taker. You know what I mean? Like, I was reflecting the other day, like, I literally changed the way I think about life based on the need to post on social media for these books. And it's a bummer.
It kind of is, right? And then you fall into that weird space of, like, okay, did anyone like it and share it? Oh, no, it didn't get any traction.
I turned off the like count because I just...
You found yourself just looking?
Oh, my gosh. Like, you get a notification, and it's, like, either awesome or disheartening, and I don't want to see any of that. I'll put it out there. I'll let people explore, but the interaction piece is, I guess it's the same as, like, why I'm not writing, you know? Like, it's just this, like, vulnerability of, do they like the book? Do they like the post? And
it is. It's putting yourself out there to a degree, for sure. Yeah. So thank you for having the courage to come and put yourself out here for this, right? What's really neat with this, and with, I think, podcasts in general, I know that. So I started this before the pandemic, way before the pandemic. because the pandemic put it like a stop to it all for a while. Because I like this in-person interaction. I built the table with kind of social distancing in mind.
Love it.
Plus, there's multiple reasons. So your microphone doesn't pick up my loud ass. My microphone doesn't pick up you as much, right? There's different reasons. And I played around with sizes. I started off with like a small banquet table, then it turned into 2 banquet tables. Then it was like, all right, can I find a custom, like a dining room table this big? No. Okay, how much for a custom table to be built? Way more than I wanted to spend. All right, can I build a table? Because I'm kind of handy, sure. Yeah. So like that's how it like trickled down, and then it was like, all right, what logo am I gonna burn onto it, stuff like that, because I do the wood burning, so I was like, all right, it'd be cool if I would burn my logo. Great. Thank you. This was a big project. It was pretty cool to do. I've built a couple other things. I built like a whole cash wrap for a store. So someone else that we work with, he runs a store out of Ferndale. He's got a clothing store, his own brand, and I built a cash wrap for him, glass and everything, and shelves and stuff. It was really sweet. And then I've done a desk for someone else too. I built a desk, which was cool. I challenged myself and made the legs like X shaped and stuff, and
it's like a whole different world.
It's just wild stuff. Well, I mean, you're almost there, right, with the books. Now, so the pandemic, you got out of teaching. Yeah. And how long before from then till you started like getting into this? And then at what point did you say like, I'm going to do a business with this?
Yeah. So I started playing around with the books. Maybe the beginning of the second year of the pandemic.
Okay. So you had a good amount of time.
I was starting a new job, right? So I was like focused entirely on mastering that. And then once I realized that I didn't have to spend 5 hours grading essays every night.
You had a lot of free time.
I had a lot of free time. So I just started looking for those creative outlets, and, I started getting more inquiries from people I didn't know. And that's when I was like, okay, this could be something. Like, people seem to like it. Why not pursue an actual...
And now the people you didn't know kind of reaching out to you, that was obviously coming from the people that you had made some for, and they just kind of shared the word of mouth.
Well, I did a craft fair, and I was like, I don't have anything to present my books on. So I posted on Facebook in the Clausen group, does anyone have a small bookshelf that I can use to hold? And I posted a picture of these because it's like a weird size, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean it's hard to tell like on the camera. It's bigger than an actual book. I mean, it feels closer to like
a dictionary
encyclopedia, almost like God, I can't remember the word, like a textbook, almost textbook size.
Yeah. Yeah, so I was like, I need something to display them on. Does anyone have anything? And no one had a bookshelf.
No.
But a lot of people really like the books. So I got a lot of inquiries about, like, can you do this? And just like, I have this event coming up. Can you make something for my friend? And that's when I kind of saw the potential for it becoming a thing.
All right. Yeah. And from like, so to talk about putting yourself out there, how was that for you going to that first craft show?
Terrifying. There's so much logistics behind it that I felt so unprepared. I, joined all the Facebook groups to see what other crafters were doing, how they set everything up. But, having complete strangers approach and
basically judging your work, right?
It's a weird feeling, and you're right there watching them judge. So
it's not like you're like from the safety, like at home, and it's just online or something. It's like in front of you, and you can hear their comments.
Positive comment, like someone to type something nice out. You were like seeing their facial expression,
and you can totally see when someone's like, or they're like, oh, look at that, for sure,
right. So I just felt so out of my element. Like teaching is a whole world on its own, and then shifting into the business world is a whole world on its own, and then going into the craft world is its own thing, and they're all so like barely overlapping, so it's just Yeah, it was a strange feeling, but it worked out really well. I had very few options then.
Okay.
So I got a lot of requests for like custom orders, and now I've moved into more of like the standard stock books that people like, at a craft fair, people want to walk away with their product.
Yes.
So I've moved more into that generalized.
So like, is there any specific genres that you kind of keep yourself to?
Public domain.
Okay.
So I do a lot of
you gotta toe that line, right?
Yep, public domain books. Just the classics are fun. I think everyone knows the stories, so whatever interpretation you have for the cover, they get.
Right.
So it's a lot of fun. I just did The Yellow Wallpaper, which is a short story.
Okay.
It was, just very timely and appropriate, and love doing like a relevant book at the time, so that was a lot of fun. And it just varies. I mean, I do a lot of custom orders, so people have their favorite book. They want that represented. But for me, I like the classics.
So for anyone listening, define public domain. How do you know if a book is public domain?
Yes.
And why is that important?
Copyright laws. There's essentially a list of books that are within the public domain. The most recent common one, Great Gatsby, was just added.
Oh, okay. And it's basically
popular.
like a timing thing, right? Like the copyright lasts for so many years, and then after that period, it becomes public domain.
Dies.
Is it after Is it after they die?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure how all that works.
Yeah. So, anything before 1927, I think. Let me double check that. Don't quote me.
Right.
But I just have a whole list that I work from, pick my favorites.
Now, is there like a list that goes out like, oh, this one's Great Gatsby's available now, we can do it?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
really?
Yeah. It's
really?
A big deal.
There's like an alert?
It's a big deal.
Wow,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, because I mean, at that point, right, anyone could start using like the logos or the just reprinting the story in their own bindings and stuff like that, right?
Yeah. I mean, the artwork, I haven't even considered those differences. I always do my own, but the title is mainly the issue for me.
Okay.
The title.
Right. Now, when you're painting these, like you were just saying, like the artwork, you always kind of do your own. Mm-hmm. So are you looking at the original, if there was original artwork, are you looking at that for inspiration, or are you just kind of going off of like what the general theme or story was of the book or the characters, and then just going from there and making your own painting?
I mean, I'm definitely familiar with the covers, but I like to choose, if not a moment from the book, a feeling from the book that I personally enjoy, because that's what makes it fun for me. Like, I'm a moment person, so like there's like specific lines in a book
that just speak to you.
Exactly. And then I always do a quote on the inside cover of that same moment or that feeling, and just the connection between the art and the text. I told you I'm a word person,
right?
So
Okay. And I mean, it is wild too how much like, and you really notice this when you read books and then watch the movies that their books are made, or that the movies. Read the movies based on, oh my God, watch the movies that are based on the books.
Yes.
And you see the complete differences in detail. Like,
oh yeah, what they focus on.
Right, what they focus on, how they describe the scenes and like set the scenes.
Losing the narrator.
Yeah, you do. You totally lose that part. You lose like the internal stuff.
Yeah. Where
like they're describing their emotional state or the thoughts that are going through. You lose a lot of that with the movie. And it is amazing how much words can convey a feeling of a moment like that.
Yeah.
So that's interesting that it's what inspires you.
Yeah.
Now with the books, and I think I know the answer.
Uh-oh.
Do you actually make the books, or are you buying the books pre-made?
Oh, I hate that question. I'm not a woodworker. I buy the books. I paint and design them.
Okay. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? Obviously, like some people just don't have that
Not
craft.
my-
Is
not my
that
thing.
something that you've thought about exploring?
Absolutely. So the idea got shut down because the woodworker was my ex. So he started
Damn,
designing.
relationships.
I know, relationships get in the way. But he started designing and playing around with completely handmade books.
Okay.
And I was loving it. Not as, I was loving books more than I was loving the relationship. So that idea...
So different sizes, like to kind of more mirror like the real books.
Yeah. Just, I just love the concept of everything being handmade.
Right. Oh, for sure. Especially like when you get into that craft space, right?
Yeah.
There's like a huge
It's
emphasis
just so much
on
more comfy,
the handmade thing.
Yeah.
For sure. Getting into the craft space, what was the biggest thing that caught you off guard or you were unprepared for?
Time.
Okay.
I started this for fun, obviously, so spending time on the book was not a big deal because I enjoyed it so much.
And it was for you, right?
Yeah.
Like at first they started off kind of personal.
Right. Or like for friends or my family hates me because I haven't made them a book yet. But but for friends, so it was like, time wasn't a factor, but now that you have so many orders coming in and you need to turn them around, it's like time, there's never enough. I could spend days on a book, but I can't. So it's just, time is the biggest surprise for sure.
And this is a thing that like I've come to realize I hate about the hustle culture mentality, right? Is the turn your passions into a job sort of thing. Have you started to feel that? Have you started to feel that like something you started as for fun is now turning into work? And have you felt the I don't know if I want to do this right now kind of moments?
So I haven't felt that it's not fun anymore.
Okay. That's good.
I am very intentional about a calendar. I'm a calendar person. I schedule everything out.
Okay. So you're blocking off chunks of time. Today is book day. Got to work.
Exactly. So it's like I'm going to spend 2 hours on this book on Monday and then on Wednesday and then, you know what I mean? So I plan everything out very intentionally. I don't accept more than my calendar allows for because I don't want to disappoint someone by having a book 2 weeks late. So
yep. I mean, that's smart for business, right?
I just... the calendar is my life.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So that's good that it hasn't started to feel like that because it can totally do that,
There are days where I'm like, I just don't feel like putting in the energy right now. Yep. And, that's where the mini-series shows up. So
right. There you go. Yeah. Because it turns into that, right? Like in your off time, you're doing now something else.
Right.
And then it's like, well, where's your downtime at? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you take probably a better approach than I do, and you actually block off time because I'm just like, fuck it, I'm not doing anything today, and then I'm like, damn it, I could have been using that time to do something, like with this, I have 2 episodes already pre-recorded and I have to edit, and like editing, especially since I introduced video, is time consuming. Now I only have 2 camera angles right now. Before last season I had 3 camera angles, but we moved and I'm trying to figure. That's why that camera's on there, because it's going to hang it from the ceiling to try to get the center shot. Okay. But I don't know if that's going to work. It might be too close. And like an episode. So if the episode was like 3 hours long, it would probably take me 6 to 9 hours to edit it.
Wow.
Because I literally have to watch it.
And
first, I have to sync everything up. I have to, because the audio is separate from the video, right? So I got to sync the video up with the audio. Bad thing about cameras is using memory cards is they break the video into chunks.
Oh my gosh.
So like my last episode, I just copied over this last night. There for one camera was like 7 chunks. So.
And then you've got multiple cameras.
And then you got multiple cameras, right? So the 7 chunks, I have to line up those 7 chunks with the master audio file, line it all up, line up the other camera angles. And then a cool feature of the editing software is I can combine all the video feeds together in one thing. So then as I'm watching, I can just flip camera, like this camera for when you're talking, that camera for when I'm talking, you know, and I can bounce back and forth. But what sucks is like, then you got to like fine tune stuff. So you got to pause it, back up a little bit, just move it right here. I switched camera too late. My reaction speed was too late, you know, so then it turns into this long thing. I mean, my most popular episode was the Decade in Review right before the pandemic hit. And that episode, Lord, I watched that episode so many times doing the editing before I found out that I could do a multicam way. And then I finished it with the multicam way because it made it easier, but it's very, very time consuming. So then that's the part that like, I like editing and being creative, but that there isn't much creativity to that editing because it's just back and forth, right? Trying to, you know, who's talking, that's who it should be on, right? Or the reactions. Are you laughing? I should probably have you laughing versus me talking. Things like that. So it does become work. And then the whole social media aspect is the other part that's like, oh, do I really want to sit here and try to make like 5 posts? Like at one point I had in my calendars, like, send a post, like this many posts a day. Every other day, do like 3 posts a day.
It's exhausting.
And it does get exhausting. And like there's another thing you can do too in this kind of space, especially if you do video, like on YouTube, is you have your main YouTube channel that has your actual videos. Then you create a secondary YouTube channel that just does clips of your main videos. So you can like make, you know, out of like maybe a 3-hour episode, you could have like 20 clips. And then you're just spamming those things out there. You got all these different clips. It's a lot of work.
Yeah,
if you
I wasn't
want to get
laughing.
into that.
I was laughing because it just sounds outrageous. Like
and that's what you don't think about, right? When you get into these things, is you don't think about the extra work that goes into it. It's funny, the tequila guy, Don, he says people are basically, there's entrepreneurs and then there's entrepreneurs. Like, and I often find myself as a entrepreneur. I want to start a food truck. I don't have the energy to do all that. I don't want to deal with food inspectors and licensing and all that stuff. You know what I mean? So it's looking at it realistically, like, yeah, you could do any business you want, but are you going to put in that work?
Right.
This hasn't turned into too much work for you so far, right?
No, I'm definitely not, you know, it's not like I am expecting anything to really happen from it. As bad as that sounds, like I want it to stay fun, and I want it to stay as my creative outlet, and I don't want it to feel like work, you know, like I love my job. That's my work, you know? So like, I want this to always be my thing. So the goal here is not to be like, all right, one day I'm going to be able to quit my job and just do these books full time, right? Honestly, no.
Because for a lot of people, that's the goal, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh man, I hate my job, but I would love to do this. Look, I would love to sit and have conversations with people all day like Joe Rogan does. But, right, it's unrealistic for me to think that I'm going to just catapult to the stratosphere of podcasts. I've done okay. I don't make any money at all yet. And that was never the goal. Like when I got into doing this, the goal was not like, let's make money. The goal was, let's talk to interesting people, try to have a laugh, and help people tell their stories and promote themselves, basically.
Yeah. I think I love painting. I love designing, but it's all on your own. You know, it's like so isolating.
Very personal and kind of private thing.
Yeah. So I could not be without my regular job because that's where I get my connection, you know, like that's where I get my people time and you know, I just sitting at my craft desk all day, every day sounds quite unsatisfying.
Yeah,
right? I like need that people time.
And it's funny because like, so my sister, she used to do photography as a hobby, and then she got a job as a photographer, and it totally ruined it for her for a while.
Aww.
Like once she got out of photography, she didn't want to do photography for a while because she said it just kind of took the fun out of it and just ruined it. Now she's dabbling back into it, doing stuff. She actually, that day that I met you at that fair, she was set up outside the family store. She was set up. She does she does all kinds of stuff, but she was doing the like paint pouring, but she does it on like tiles and stuff. Like you put the tile and you spin it and you pour your paint, and it does all kinds of crazy designs. And she started messing around with like alcohol inks and all kinds of other stuff too. So she does that stuff, but so she's got other outlets besides photography, but that was one she did for a long time. And then that professionalism of it, the job part.
That's such a bummer.
Right. It took away the fun that she enjoyed from it and made it monotonous and almost sucked her passion, away from her from that. So it's a fine line sometimes, I think.
Absolutely.
For people. How have you seen your painting skills improve or change?
Drastically.
I was started off with stick figures and
oh gosh, I was always really like as a kid loved to draw. Every kid loves to draw, right? So like you grow out of it, you lose it. I started off with very geometric patterns, like easy, and I've just found that the more comfortable you get, the more you can do. So my favorite now is like getting a picture of someone or a pet or whatever and creating that into a book. So it's like, you have that like structure to base it on, but it's more interpretive than just like a pattern.
Right. Right. Have you, are you getting more of those kind of orders for like, here's a picture of someone or here's a picture of a pet? I want to create a keepsake.
Yeah. So pets are really popular.
Man, people love their pets.
Oh, yeah. That was one of the first books I did was of my dog.
Okay. All right.
I'm a little obsessed. But the pets are popular. And then now more and more people are looking at it for like a wedding present. So like taking sorry.
No, you're fine. I just sniffed really hard into the microphone, so you're okay if you cough. Sorry, everyone.
Yeah, my bad. Taking someone's engagement photo and turning that into a keepsake box for their wedding. Yeah. It's like just so sweet. And like you put their wedding song in it and it's just like, they put all their invitation copies and a table number and just like memories from that day. And it's just like heartwarming that's like going to be something they treasure,
Right. And it is, right? I did a wood burning for someone for their anniversary.
Aww.
This was like their favorite photo. Hey, can you make this an anniversary gift for my husband?
Jeez. And
so did that. And it turned out really good. I created a leg for it that could fold so you could hang it on the wall or you could turn it into basically a wood frame standing up. And it turned out really good. I can show you a picture afterwards, but sure. It was neat and it was kind of cool, like, all right. And then I've had another one where it was like, hey, can you do this, this picture of my husband and our dog? So I did that one.
It's like the two combined.
And then like creative ones for like, hey, my son really likes Transformers or my daughter really likes, what was this unicorn one? So, yeah.
Yeah, I did a Minecraft book.
Okay.
So out of my element. It was for my sister's.
You figured that one would be pretty easy. It's all blocks.
I didn't know what anything was, so I had no frame of reference. I was
of what Minecraft was.
Yeah, I probably just told my age, but I just
or that you just don't play video games.
Yeah, I just had no idea what I was working with, and I was like, "Is this good? Like, is this what you were looking for?" I don't really know.
You could have just done the Minecraft sword, and it would have been fine. It was a diamond sword.
I wish I would have known that now.
So, how has it kind of grown? So, from when you did your first craft show?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, your first craft show, how was the reception? So, we've already talked about how it was nerve-wracking to put yourself out there. How was the reception at that first time you went out?
The day of was very advertising based. I looked at it as like, I'm going to get my name out there and see if people respond well. So I got a few custom orders from that day, and it wasn't, it wasn't like a big thing. It was bigger for social media than anything else. People were like, oh, that's cool, I'll follow you. And that was the end. Now though, it's like a whole new world. Like once I started doing those like stock books of like favorites,
right?
It's just like, my last really, one I'm running out.
Really?
Like it's just a whole different game. I didn't know my customer base. I didn't know the craft game. I didn't know, there was just so much I didn't know. So once I learned what a craft customer wants, just absolute game changer.
What's a craft customer want?
They want a product they can connect with and that they can walk away with that day. So I actually started, similar to you, started doing wood burn bookmarks.
Okay.
And that's kind of been like the in for a lot of customers.
All right.
I'm not ready to commit to a book yet, but I'll get a bookmark and then come back for a book later. And that's been like a great transition piece.
Nice. Yeah. So you found a little in way before like leading to the main thing. I know in my experience, one of the harder things is at a craft show, right, is because there's so much stuff. For people to look at some of these events, right? There's like, if you've never been to a craft show, it is basically just tables upon tables upon tables of all kinds of stuff that people make. Wild stuff. And then you got like a few of them in there that are like selling rod knives or something where they're like, they don't even craft anything. They're just selling a product.
The MLM.
Yes, exactly, right? The multi-level marketing.
I can't even handle it.
Oh, it appears at all of them. Like it's wild. But there's so much stuff that it's almost like product overload, right? And you see so many unique things. So what ends up happening, in my experience, and maybe this is for you too, is that someone might like something you do, but they don't want to commit yet because they want to see what else is out there. And, people's money isn't like
it's not
infinite. Right, right? People usually got a budget or they can only afford to get a couple things.
Yeah.
So your thing has to stand out, be at the right price point, and then really, really grab them. And I think what you're talking about, right, is you're tugging at that, like, that heartstring, that emotional connection they might have with a book that they've read, right? So you got that little in there. You're playing on the emotions. But it is wild to see people come by over and over again, look at your stuff and be like, oh, that's awesome. Look at that. That's hilarious. Oh, that's great. And then just walk by. And then just keep on walking. Like I've got a Ron... is it Ron Johnson from Community, and it's like Ron Swanson, that's his name. Okay. It's like I was born ready. I'm Ron fucking Swanson, and and I did like this portrait of him, and it's hilarious, and it gets laughs all the time, and people are like, oh, look at it, but no one wants to buy it. I did like Game of Thrones ones, and it was like people would be like, oh, that's awesome. Barely ever committed. I mean, I ended up selling some of them. Like, one guy bought 2 for his office, which was cool. But it's like, you get those things where like people look at them and they're like, oh, that's so cool. And then just keep on walking.
Or like a lot of people who love the concept and that's where it ends.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, that's such a unique idea. Moving on.
And the other part too is like a realistic evaluation of the work that goes into them. So like some of these wood burnings that I do are like 8 hours or more, and that's not even including like the prepping the wood. So they're pricier, like a lot of my stuff is like $60, $80 to $100 depending on how much time I have to put into it. And people look at it and like, oh, that's too expensive, not understanding how much work went into it.
That's I don't know how deep you want to get on an MLM here, though, but that was my biggest issue with shows is, like, you can get, so I have, like, craft friends who do their own jewelry versus an MLM who does jewelry, and it's like, you can get way more from the MLM.
Sure.
It's way more reasonably priced. But that hurts the person who's doing
that's actually
it all themselves,
right?
And that predatory business model sucks the life out of me. I'll stop there.
No, and I get it though, right? Because like that's one of the things that bothers me when I would either go to a crafter store, right? So we're not talking about a store where you buy your supplies. We're talking about a store where people that create things are able to purchase or rent space to set up their own displays to sell their handcrafted products. And there's two things at these stores that drive me nuts. Is the booth that is selling the, just the knives or like some mass-produced product. It isn't something that someone's individually crafting.
They're just trickery.
Right. They're just setting up this little booth to sell a product that they're buying to sell.
Yeah.
Or this is the other thing that I've noticed, and the thing that I'm glad that my wife's aunt and mom don't do is the people that get booths that are just trying to sell the junk that they found in their basement or in their attic. So there was a place in Sterling Heights that closed down. There was Countryside Craft Mall. I don't know what caused them to close down. They've been around for forever, I guess, but now they're gone. And that was where she set up her first booth, my wife.
Okay.
And it was like half the store was just antiques and junk. And then the other half of the store was people trying to like craft stuff, make stuff. Then there was like a quarter of the MLM stuff, right? And it was kind of like more people went to that store for the old stuff than they did for like the craft stuff. And I always told her, I was like, it sucks because there's not enough of these stores around, right? There's not a lot of craft stores around for people to sell their things. There's the Town Peddler. I don't know if you know about that one. No. I want to say it's by Novi or something somewhere. Okay. That one's huge. And I've never been there, but I've heard great things about it. Her aunt had a booth in the Town Peddler for a while, but because they're so good, they kind of charge a premium for their booth space.
Yeah.
And so I was actually surprised when her aunt was like, hey, we're opening a craft store.
Yeah.
And their location is great. And that's another part that plays into this game, right?
For sure. Is
like Countryside Craft Mall. It was in a decent location, but it was in like a plaza that was kind of dying. Right? So like the people are only going there to go to certain stores in that plaza, and that was it.
No one happens upon it.
Right. Yeah. The store in Clawson now is right on 14 Mile, like a couple buildings from Main Street.
Yeah.
So during the summer, tons of foot traffic. During those festivals, tons of foot traffic, right? Really, really, really good positioning for the store. And they don't have any of the MLM stuff that I've noticed. They themselves sell Rada knives, like the store itself, right? They got a contract with, they do Rada knives, and they also do Dixie Belle paints.
Okay.
So like and now they got some candles too. They do some kind of candle. I got them upstairs, I think. So they have vendor deals with some of these companies.
Okay.
But other than that, it is completely 100% crafters.
Yeah.
You get your own booth, but it's cool because like Countryside was like aisles, right? And it was like booths on both sides. Like here's your predefined little spot. At their store, it's more of an open concept. You still like have space sizes, right? But it's all open, and they'll take like something from your booth and something from that booth and something from this booth, and they'll make a little display of the things together. So you walk in. It can be overwhelming because there is so many things.
You like don't know what's where, but you get to explore.
It does, right. And if you like it, you can just pick it up and buy it, right? Like, so it doesn't really matter where it came from. That person's going to get their money and you can get your thing. But so there's really, really cool stuff. There's people in there that are retired that are like, I'm just going to make leather crafts. And then there's this guy that does wood turning, which is probably going to be a hobby I do eventually in the future, where he makes bowls and all kinds of really cool stuff out of wood. And so there's so many neat things going on there. And I appreciate the design and the layout because of the experiences that I've had in other places.
Right.
And it was like, this is where like this is a good concept, should do good. And so far they've been doing pretty good. They celebrated their first anniversary of being open. So definitely go check it out.
I will.
But that's one of the hard parts, right? So when you get into this craft world, if you're really serious about trying to get it out there, you have very limited venues to get it out there, right? How many craft shows would you say you've gone to since being like, all right, I'm going to do craft shows?
A handful.
A handful?
A handful. I just did my last one for this year a couple weeks ago. And it's a commitment. It's a long
How many days was that one?
It was 2 days.
And how much did it cost to get in?
Nothing, actually.
Really?
It was sponsored by our work.
Yeah, the work one. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and that's how I realized you worked there, because I was like, I wasn't able to go to the floor that had them, but I went to the website to see like who was on offer. I reached out to a few people, and then I was like, oh, Stash Books by Nicole. That feels familiar. Let me pull up my Instagram.
Yeah.
That is Nicole.
Yeah.
She works with. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one was free, but that's another part that you don't think about,
very
right?
Uncommon.
Right? Yeah. And I mean, depending on the venue or the fair,
it can be upwards of.
We've had $100 ones.
Yeah.
For a predetermined space.
Judged show.
Yup.
Even more.
I don't think we've ever done a judged one yet. But that's another thing that you don't think about when you get into this kind of stuff is like, oh, cool, I'm going to go do some craft shows. Oh, $100, $50, depending on what.
Plus your display.
Then your display, yeah.
And your signage.
Right. Is it outdoor? Is it indoor? That changes everything. Outdoor, you're a victim of the weather, right?
Yeah.
And like.
Wind.
Yeah, the wind blowing stuff away.
Yeah.
So like.
That actually happened to me. Ooh. I had a A-line shelf.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like,
yep, yeah.
Okay, I don't know what that's called. But completely blew over.
Just blew over?
I broke like 3 books.
Oh, that sucks.
It was such a bummer. And I was like, something I'm doing is wrong. Like, I cannot use this display again.
Right.
But
it's a lot of like trial and error.
Yeah, you just don't know until you know.
And the other part of that too is the setup really can impact
whether or not someone stops by.
Right. Yeah. That's the other thing too, and that follows into the physical location game too, right? Like
which booth you are.
Well, having a booth at a craft store and how that booth is displayed definitely plays into the whether or not you're going to attract customers or get your stuff noticed for sure. It's
not just the product.
Right. Yeah, you could have an awesome product, and if it's not displayed the best, you may not be selling it the best way. Cords hitting the mic cord. I could hear it going ting ting.
I was wondering if that was me.
No, it's me. It's me. How is that impacted when you go to these craft shows, the layout? Like, have you finally settled on a layout that you like for when you set up your booth? Does it change every time? Because sometimes obviously every craft show, the space isn't the same, right? So you might end up with a decent sized space that's longer. You might end up in a little square. Like, how have you worked with that, like, setup to kind of maximize exposure and hopefully attract people?
I'm still working on it. It changes every single time. In the beginning, I didn't have very many walk-away products, so it was like just not much to work with as far as display goes. And then once I started like building stock, it's now an issue of how can I fit everything?
That's the other part. Yeah, it's like, oh, I got so much.
Yeah, I actually had running slideshow of books that I've done for like extras that I couldn't be displaying. And
would you just put like on a laptop or a tablet or something and just have it going?
Like electronic photo frames.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I had a guy who was about to buy Dracula, and then he saw the portrait of Dorian Gray, the picture of Dorian Gray on the slideshow. He's like,
it's the picture.
Do you have that one?
Yeah. I was just doing a movie quiz, and we kept saying it was the portrait, and it was the picture.
Yeah, definitely picture. Okay. So he saw the picture of Dorian Gray and was like, ooh, do you have that one? I was like, yeah, it's underneath the table because I couldn't fit it here. So we ended up buying both. And it's just like I had a 5-foot table was my allowance.
Right.
So
and then you're
building
limited.
in front and building behind, and how can you get the most display with a small space.
Like, do you put the table at the back and then have shelves kind of like making a like an entrance way with stuff on the sides and in front of you? Where do you stand?
Oh gosh,
there's a lot that can go into it. It's a piece of the puzzle for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. How did the work one go?
So well.
Really?
So well. I think I've learned my the summer strollers in like a summer craft fair are not looking to spend tons. They're there for the experience, for the vibe, it's a nice day. Yeah. So I think I need like the gift givers, like I'm actively looking for something for this person right now. So I think that I've identified my target customer base. This last one was just outrageous.
Okay.
Outrageous.
And obviously, I mean, with the keepsake nature of your product, right? That is like the gift giving season is probably going to be better for you. Look into, because you're down by Clawson, right?
Yeah. Look
into like Troy High School. I think they do one for around Christmas.
Okay.
It is pricey from what I remember, but it's a big one.
Yeah.
But it's right around Christmas.
Probably worth it. Yeah.
Exactly, right? And that's like the strategic game you kind of have to play. Right. Is like, is it worth it for me to get into this one? Or should I sit this one out because I'm probably not going to sell anything?
Yeah.
The other thing that, and at least, so what products do you offer right now? The books and the bookmarks, right?
Yes.
Is that it?
I mean, I do like random T-shirts for people who want them.
Okay. But that's not something that you're like advertising.
No, definitely don't advertise that. But I'm, I don't mind it. I don't want to spend my whole life doing T-shirts.
Right.
But the books and the bookmarks, it's where I enjoy spending my time.
So I think like that's an important piece of this craft puzzle too, because what I've noticed is like with us, with me and my wife, right? Like she sews bags. She makes these really good bags now, tote bags. She's made earrings. She's done ornaments.
You can't do too much.
You can't do too much.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because when we've been to some craft shows where we were like, okay, we're going to offer this, we're going to offer that. I brought a couple wood burnings and let's see what happens. And sometimes it's like this one, she didn't want to bring her earrings. She was like, I'm not bringing them. I was like, you should bring them. She was like, I'm not bringing them. I was like, we're bringing them. Like I'll bring them my damn self.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that really sold.
Wow.
Was the earrings. Right. And she priced them right. And they look good. And that was what sold the entire show. None of her like nicer stuff. We had Grinch Christmas ornaments, right? Like the clear plastic, and she paints the Grinch's face on there and then fills them with green crinkled like paper and stuff.
Yeah. And nothing.
But there was like two other booths that were also doing something similar.
Such a good point.
Wasn't the same thing, but it was very similar. They were Christmas ornaments made differently, all this, right? So, and that's the other thing is like when you get into this stuff, sometimes other people do the same things. And then it becomes like, okay, well, what sets me apart, right? So like at the craft store now, I have my wood burnings in there. There's another person that does wood burnings. The difference is definitely the quality. The style and the quality, right? Yeah. And I'm not to toot my horn, but I'll show you some of my stuff later.
Yeah.
Like 8 hours, I'm sometimes amazed at how well they turn out.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not doing original artwork by any means. I'm trying to do things that people like and relate to. I don't know if I technically I get in trouble. Maybe, I don't know. I try to input enough change to make it a little different. But there is a clear difference in quality.
Yeah.
With some things. Like, and that's no judgment on the person that's doing the other booth.
Right.
Maybe they just got into it. I've been doing art a long time, so like it's funny because I got into wood burning because my son got a wood burner. I had a wood burner when I was like 10 or something and never really used it, right?
Yeah.
My son got one for Christmas one year and he started doing it and I was like, let me try that. And I did this one and I was like, oh, okay. And then I was like, let me try something else. And then I did that one and that one turned out really good. And I was like,
it's like addicting.
And then I was like, let me see, because the typical wood burner you get looks like a soldering iron pen, right?
Yeah.
I have since graduated to a real wood burner.
I don't even know what that would look like.
I'll show you a real wood burner.
Yeah.
Temperature control.
Wow.
Different tips that can switch out really quickly.
Shapes.
Oh, I built a whole tray for all my different tips that are for different purposes, right? Some for different lines, different thicknesses of lines, different shapes, different shading shapes that allow you to get into there and create different gradients, like all kinds of nut stuff, right? And there is a whole different world of things. But that's the thing that sucks is like mine are more expensive.
Right.
Mine sell less.
The average person doesn't really know the difference.
Right.
Yeah.
So my new game is I made one and I have it upstairs by my desk, but I made a clock. So I'm going to start dabbling into wood burn clocks with different scenes.
Wow.
So like when I wood burn things right now or like before, I was wood burning things I was interested in. Like I made a dragon, right? And I sold the dragon to someone that works with us actually. Right. She was like, I need that. Yeah. I have this really cool wolf one that I did that I thought someone would buy by now. No one's ever bought it, and it looks fantastic. Yeah. The Game of Thrones ones, I did sell some of those. There's one that I didn't sell. I think we have upstairs in the office. The Ron Swanson, no one bought, and I thought for sure someone would buy that one.
Okay, so my question is, where do you keep all of your product before you sell it? Because mine decorates my house right now. Like, I have no space for it. I like have shelves in my living room, and that's where I keep my products. Like, it's pretend decor.
So we have some stuff in here, not much. Some stuff in there. At the booth in the store, I have at least 5 wood burnings. And then, some of it, she's like, I really like this one. I'm going to keep it for the house.
Love it.
So, like,
so you don't have, like, a separate house with all your junk then?
No, I definitely do not have a separate house with all my junk. Actually, with this house is much bigger than my last house, and it's surprisingly empty compared to how my last house felt. Yeah. Like, our last basement was full of shit. This basement, it's all in there. Like my basement, this is the emptiest I've ever had a basement. Yeah. And I'm usually the basement guy because I'm like, all right, I'll go hang out down there. This is my space, you know?
Yeah.
And then she always ends up taking it over. But you'll see, like, if we go upstairs and look at some of the craft stuff, our living room is kind of her craft area. Okay. I just set up my wood burning stuff. We've been here a year now, and I just set up my wood burning stuff because I do have some clock pieces to make some clocks, and I have some blank wood burning pieces, like blank natural wood looking ones that I haven't ever done anything with yet. So I have those. So I got plans. Yeah. It's just finding the right designs and then finding the designs that sell, right? So like the first clock I made is a deer, right? With the 12, 9, 3, and 6, almost like target reticles. Oh. Right? And it didn't sell. I was surprised. Yeah. It never sold. And then I have a fishing one that's cool, and it's like you can hang it on this nice thick rope that we like, very rustic looking. It's a fly fishing thing. It's like mountains and a river scene with a fly in it, but it's the body of the fish this whole scene is in. Looks really cool. Actually, I had someone reach out to me about selling it as part of a raffle for Trout Unlimited, but then never heard anything back. Yeah. So like in that one, I would have thought that someone that's like dad or grandpa loves fly fishing, boom, because I like fly fishing, and I was like, that's why I made some of these things, right? And I was like, oh, that one's got to sell. Right. No, it hasn't sold. Now she's like, I'm keeping it. I like it. It's going to go in your bar because the bar is kind of like hunting, fishing themed. So it's just, different things like this one here. That was a simple one, right? But it's just a samurai silhouette. I mean, I've got one that I did that is this sweet samurai that is it looks like a Japanese like ink painting. Like that's what it looks like. I went for that style. It looks really cool. No one's ever bought it. So it just depends.
It's so disheartening sometimes.
It is and it isn't at the same time because I'm like, damn, that does still look sweet. Yeah. Except for I can always notice where I made mistakes.
Oh, I hate that.
Right? That drives you nuts, right? Where you're like, everyone's like, oh, it looks amazing. And you're like, thank you so much. But I know I fucked up right there. Yeah. Like,
I literally have to have people tell me, like, no one else knows that you made that mistake. No one else.
Yeah. One of the things I noticed, like I have this one piece that's for sale at the store right now, and it's just a cross with like roses on it and like the thorns going around the cross. But when I was making it and doing the clear coat, it was before I put the clear coat, like there was a smudge of pencil on this one side, and I sanded it away, and now you can see that spot is a little bit brighter than the rest of the wood.
From where you sanded.
And it drives me nuts. You know, or the samurai one that looks really cool. I missed some of the pencil lines when I was erasing it, and I can see them, and it drives me nuts. You know, so now I'm like, like trying to scribble it off, and it gets frustrating as a creator when you can see those mistakes.
Right, but then on the flip side, it's so addicting when someone loves something. And
then you're like, oh, because it's that validation part, right?
Yeah.
And that's part of the fun of when you do the actual shows, because you can see the people like, oh, that's really cool. And you can see people are like, that's overpriced.
I actually had someone reach out to do a book for an English teacher's retirement.
Oh.
And they sent me a video
Super
of
appropriate.
Her students giving her the book. And she's like crying, and it was so satisfying. And I was just like, that's like such a beautiful moment. Like having been a teacher, like what a great moment with your kids the year you're retiring.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah, now those reactions are great.
You said you do the public domain books.
Yeah.
Right? Now you're building up stock, or you have stock now of multiples of the same book. Is the painting always the same, or do you do different scenes for each book?
It depends. I mean, I learn each time I do one, right? So if there's something I don't love, that gets changed the next time.
Okay.
So, I mean, I use the same kind of structure, I would say, for each, just because, I mean, time again, you know, like it's, if I have a new idea, sure, maybe I'll create a new structure for it, but or a new design for it, but mostly it's just improvements in style or in color or in, font. I'm always changing fonts.
Okay. Why are you always changing fonts?
I hate every font. Every single one.
And it's the thing I hate about fonts is like sometimes some are so similar, but then like when you want one that's
so different,
and then you want one that like stands out, but then everybody uses that font because it stands out, and you're like, oh, I can't use that.
Yeah. It's I've started to go with a typewriter font.
Okay.
Feeling that's appropriate, but every time, just like they're all just a little bit different.
I knew someone once that was trying to create a new font.
Really?
Yeah, it was very interesting.
They have an app that you can like use your Apple Pencil on the iPad and like create your own font out of your own handwriting. And I was like, that is so cool. I did it, and I was like, I have the ugliest handwriting ever.
Yeah, I already know my handwriting.
Oh my gosh. I was like, this is disgusting. I can't even use this font. Like,
what's interesting about fonts is that I totally leaned away from the microphone for a sec. So the name of the show and like my logos are graffiti inspired, right? So in the graffiti writing world, to get up is to get your name out there, right? Like every time you're putting your name out on buildings and billboards and signs and stuff like that, you're getting up, right? It's you're getting your name out there, which was the inspiration for the show, the name, everything. But what's wild is in the world of graffiti writing, there is so much emphasis on letter structure and fonts, and people will do entire alphabets in their own style to practice the structure of the letters. Like, and it's funny because there's like, you can go on Reddit and see like graffiti stuff on Reddit and things like that, but like people will just destroy you if your structure is bad. And like, dude, this doesn't flow. Like, you would never think that something that can be so crazy artistically has so much structure behind it. Yeah. And it's the tons of times people will be like, what do you think of this design? And they'll be like, you need to go back to basics, learn your structure before you start messing around with crazy stuff. Yeah,
I imagine
it's really interesting.
It's kind of like almost a symbol with graffiti art as far as like
it's the actual letter structure. Yeah, it's like learn the basics of how these letters flow, how the strokes are supposed to be, because like a lot of letters, like you can actually find guides for like different fonts or different letter structures, the stroke direction and orientation is supposed to be. So then they're like, look at that, examine how that works, how now once you have the basics of the structure, how can you tweak things and still have the basic structure of that letter. Right. So like that's the one thing that they always talk about is you don't want to lose the basic structure of the letter. If you make a change and now all of a sudden you've broken that basic structure it needs to have to be that letter, you've destroyed that. No one's going to be able to tell what it is or read it. Now there's different styles like wild style where it's supposed to be hard to read. But when you learn to see it, you can see the letter structure still there. So it's a very interesting thing. And just like the balance of things, stuff like that too. Like it gets kind of goofy.
It's like a mini version of playing with language in a story.
Yeah, it is. And you would never think in something, like I said, that seems so artistic that there's so much emphasis on building those letters and putting that stuff together. There's a lot of art theory in graffiti writing.
Oh, I'm sure.
That is, I never would have thought.
I mean, it's just like writing. You have to know the rules to break the rules.
And
you have to
that's pretty much what it is.
Yeah.
You know, and then it's the experimentation part. Hey, what can I do here? What can I do there? Like even the logo on the table.
Yeah.
Like to see.
I'll let you go, and then I have to comment on. Yeah.
Well, no, just like the letter structure there, being able to keep the letters but making slight tweaks to it to make it look neat or cool, but still have the basic letter structure there.
I'm very disappointed I did not have this version of your logo.
Oh, it's okay.
When I did that, and I'm like,
I've thought about changing like on the website and stuff, but I already have so many cards made with this logo because that was the first logo I made.
Yeah.
This one I came up with later for this table.
Yeah.
I created this
it's
one
like
specifically for this table. I thought so too, and I've been playing around with changing it on the website. To this.
Well, when you make that change, let me know. I'll update your box.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Yeah, I love that logo too.
Yeah.
And it's weird because I'll go through like spurts of I can't draw shit, and then all of a sudden it'll be like this looks sweet.
Yeah.
This one's sweet. Yeah. You know, this one. I did that design on my computer. I did this design on my computer too. On this computer, you know, it's got the little pen.
Yeah.
Works great because I can detach the screen and use it as a tablet if I want.
Oh, perfect.
Or I can flip the screen around and fold it down so it's like angled and kind of thicker.
Yeah.
And the pen works amazing. So, stupid expensive computer when I bought it back in the day.
Sure,
but it works great for that stuff. I use Sketchbook Pro for all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so like this one I was playing with perspective obviously and kind of just playing around. This one is very geometric and like rigid. But I was like, all right, cool, you know, and then there's a lot of symbology in graffiti writing. A lot of times there will be like symbols or things that replace words, right? So like while this one just says the arrow going up being the up part, right? So there's things like that, whereas this one, I can't even remember when I sat down to draw this one, but it took a couple days of playing around. Now the and the up, that's a font. I didn't freehand any of that stuff. The get part, that's all me. And it's
beautiful.
Thank you so much. It is. I like I said, it turned out cool. I liked it, and I was like, oh, you know what, this would be sweet because I was like, I want to put something on the table. That would have been too crazy on the table.
Yeah.
I didn't want to have like colors because I knew I was going to wood burn it, and I wasn't planning on painting it. I wanted something that was going to pop off the color of the table, and that was what I settled on. Now, what sucks about this is a pine table. Wood burning this sucked. It was so bad. Because pine has so much sap in the wood. Yeah. Like I had to like use the like emery cloth or whatever to like take all of the char off my wood burning tips. So many times. It was because it would just get all gummed up from all the sap in the wood. And that's like another thing with wood burning is the type of wood that you burn is a huge factor in that. Yeah. It was rough to do, and I mean I see things where where I'm like, oh, there's like little brighter spots that could have been darker, but it was so tough to do, and to have it still look good.
Once you do the top coat, it's like totally different anyway.
Yeah,
you're like, I wasn't expecting it to look like that.
That's the other thing too, is I did a lot of playing around with the coating that I use. So like the color of this table is stained; it's a natural stain, but the clear coat that I use is what I found does the least amount of staining to the wood possible.
What do you use?
I'd have to find the can. It's like out right over here or something. But it's a water-based stain.
Okay.
So a lot of like polyurethanes and stuff like that are oil-based, and they will tint the wood.
Yeah.
And so I have some pieces. I have before and after pictures of like before staining, after staining, and it infuriates me because before the staining, like everything popped and looked awesome.
Yeah.
Or before the clear coat, I mean. After the clear coat, because it was oil based, it totally yellowed the wood. It took away some of that contrast and that that made it pop, and it drives me nuts. Like the wolf face, like totally pisses me off
murky.
Because so then it was like, okay, what can I find that kind of keeps it as clear as possible? And this stuff does I think it's poly something, but
polyacrylic.
I can't remember. I have to look. I have literally outside this room. I have the cans, but that has been the best thing that I've found to keep the natural color of the wood without adding too much coloration to it. Because polyurethane yellows the shit out of anything that's kind of whitish or like a bright color. It will yellow the shit out of it.
I've used polyacrylic, and it's the best thing I found. So I'm very curious what you use, because I definitely.
Well, because it's something you don't really consider, right?
No.
Until you like start messing with these things, and then you're like, oh shit, that totally just changed how this looks.
Yeah. I do like that it brings out like the natural wood. It brings out the natural wood features.
Well, the grains for sure. Yeah.
Thank you. But it definitely darkens everything.
And that's like the whole purpose of staining, period, right? Is to kind of bring out the grain of the wood. Yeah, for sure. Now, what is your prep process for all of this? Like when I wood burn, I sand it down, wet it to get the nap up, sand it down again, wet it again once it's dry, sand it again, like and each time it's like getting finer and finer grit to get it smoother and smoother and smoother.
I'm a texture person. I don't sand it completely. I sand it just enough for the paint to go on.
Okay.
Easily. You know what I mean? So like just enough so that it's like not gonna leave ridges when I paint, you know?
So like with wood, and for anyone that doesn't know, when you get wood wet, those grains raise up. Yeah. And so you may not see it. It may feel nice and smooth at first, but once you introduce water, it totally can change the texture of the wood, which is the reason why my process for wood burning is to wet it down, get that the grain to raise, sand it down, let it dry, wet it again, sand it down to get it as smooth as possible. So when I add things to it, it doesn't. Now, I don't really paint any of my stuff, so I can see you painting is going to add more moisture to it and could cause problems. Now, without sanding, how hard is it to get the paint to stick? Do you notice a difference?
Well, so the first couple books I didn't even have sandpaper. I didn't even have sandpaper. Sorry.
Did you hear the difference?
Yeah, I did. Absolutely. I'm just okay. So yeah, the first couple books I didn't even have sandpaper. Okay. Like, I had no idea what I was doing. And painting it was just such a task. Like it was just, dragging the paint, not a thing. So I invested in some sandpaper and started using that. I've gotten to the point where, I've got my little Ryobi sander and switching all that out. So definitely the key factor in it being prepped is sanding and cleaning. And then I just do a lot of chalk paint.
Okay.
So it covers super nicely. I do accents and acrylic.
Everyone loves that chalk paint now.
It's so easy.
Oh, my Lord. Easy. Her mom, when they opened that store, the majority of that store was pieces that her mom reclaimed furniture that she redid.
Oh, yeah.
Like like that was what was most of the store at the time when they first opened. It was hilarious because her mom had so much shit. But that's what she does. She refinishes it and then chalk paints most of it.
Yeah.
Like it's a huge.
It covers beautifully.
The chalk paint's a huge thing right now. That's what that Dixie Belle paint, I believe, is chalk paint.
Okay. Yeah.
That they sell at the store. Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. It's just so easy to work with. It's like a no-brainer.
And it's not shiny, right? Because it has that
matte.
flat. Yeah, it's got that very, very matte finish where there's not a lot of shine to it at all.
Right. So, yeah, I love the chalk paint. I like to do accents in acrylic just because it's so much color variety.
Right.
And then, of course, staining it at the end.
Now, how long for a book? I mean, obviously, it's going to vary depending on the level of painting that you're doing on it. But, like, on average, how long do you say it would take you to finish a book?
So that one I started and finished last night.
Okay.
I did the design. I got my stencil.
Right.
Got my stencil and did the whole, for lack of a better word, stencil design. And then painted it in probably, 3 hours. And then, of course, just letting it sit overnight. A lot of it's waiting for paint to dry. Literally, I find myself staring. And I'm like, I'm literally watching paint dry right now. Let me go do something else.
Yep.
You just forget. You forget that you can do other things in the middle of crafting. So
now for the books that you do, the public domain books.
Yeah.
And you said that a lot of times it's a scene, right? Something in the book that kind of spoke to you is what you'll paint for the cover. Now, are you creating a design in a stencil, or so you're still doing that process?
Yeah. I use my I use Adobe Illustrator.
Okay.
And I do a design on that and make it a stencil and work from there. I always like to have a very structured foundation. I don't trust myself to just like go at it, No. I'm a planner. I mean, I talked about my calendar.
Should already know, because the calendar, right?
I'm a planner, so I like to have that structure, something to work from. So I start with Illustrator and then create a stencil and delete from there. I'm
looking at your Instagram. I was looking at some of the books. The Dracula one looks really cool with the castle.
So fun.
So I see we were talking about the yellow wallpaper, which was a neat one too, because it looks like you just did like a fancy ornate wallpaper, which makes sense. Yeah. And even your logo, like that was one of the things I noticed about your cards. So, I have, I don't have any right down here. They're over there. My cards are just typical rectangular business cards with my logo, a little blurb about what it's about, and then like some contact information, right? Yours is one of those new school hip kids square ones, right? It's not your standard business card, but your design for your stash books is very clean.
Yeah.
It's not too busy. What was the process of selecting all that, coming up with that design, deciding on that shape of card?
Lots of feedback. Yeah. Lots of feedback. I struggled so much to get kind of the vibe I was looking for I wanted people to know that it's like so many people confuse it for like a literal book, So I wanted that clean line to represent simplicity of like, this is not an actual book. And then my one of my best friends is she's used to be a journalism teacher.
Okay.
So she designed yearbooks and all of that, like award-winning yearbooks. They're beautiful.
I didn't know yearbooks could win awards.
Like high school.
There's an award for everything.
There's there's a whole thing. It's a whole world.
Really?
But she helped me. She's very into clean lines and simplicity. So she helped me figure out kind of the structure that I wanted and of course the font that I wanted. I just wanted something very accessible and, for lack of a better word, simple,
Yeah. I think that there's definitely
so much time goes into crafting a logo.
It can, right? Yeah. But I think there is sometimes a weird, and it's a detriment to create things that are too busy. Mm-hmm. But like people are like, I want it to stand out and be so unique. And sometimes less is just better.
Right.
And for the card, for choosing that shape and stuff, was that just feedback or just kind of fit the logo, or?
I wanted it to represent the wood, the natural wood. So I knew I needed that background. And then I honestly based the shape on my logo.
Okay.
I wanted it to mirror the same shape. The standard business card felt too much.
Too much, depending on
put
where
it
the
in
logo
a woman's
would be.
pocket in her jeans.
Okay.
Let it fit in that
All
pocket.
Right.
You know.
All right. Now, Stash Book. How did you come up with that name?
Oh gosh. I was just looking for.
It's very fitting.
It is. It's funny enough, but still.
Because that's one of the hard things to do, right? That's the hard thing whenever you're all right, I'm going to start kind of doing this for real. Mm-hmm. What am I going to call it?
Yeah.
That's a hard process.
It honestly, we were just brainstorming probably in the first 3.5 minutes, came up with Stash Books because it was what else are you going to call that?
Right. I mean, that's what,
you know.
In the, at least the cool thing with the name is it clearly speaks to what you can do with the book, right?
Yeah.
It's a book that's hollow inside,
right?
It's made out of wood, and you can put things in it. You can stash stuff in this book.
Yes.
And I could totally see, especially with some of the other ones that you've made, how true to the book that they look, right?
Yeah.
You could potentially throw that on a bookshelf and not think differently of it and use it to stash things.
Stuff.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's also a really great coffee table piece.
Yeah.
I love the coffee table book, but no one ever reads them. So why not have a practical use for your coffee table book?
Right.
Throw your motes in there, don't lose them.
Yep.
So I love no, it's not a necessary thing, right? But I just love the potential, the open potential of it. Put it on your bookshelf as a bookend or feature it to fill up space. Right. Love it.
Now, what do you see being the future? Where is this going for you? How do you plan to get there since you're so structured? What's your 5-year plan?
You would think I have a plan. I really just want it to stay as fun as possible. Up until I started doing these, I didn't have a hobby.
Okay.
I don't even know what I did. I graded essays the whole time.
I don't even know what I did for fun.
I honestly, I graded essays, and then I was in my early 20s, so I did what early 20s people do. But I just didn't have a thing, and I want this to stay my thing, you know?
Okay. Have you thought about branching out into other niche kind of areas, creating your own covers, maybe fun, playful ones?
Yeah. So I've done some travel books and recipe books and kind of things like that.
That would be good for recipes. And if people I'm always telling her, I'm you quit going on Pinterest. If you find one you print it out. Right. So because what'll turn into which
one was it?
Where was it? Yeah, all that shit, right? Yeah. And then a lot of these online recipes now, you got to go through a bunch of bullshit just to get to the actual recipe. I don't need the backstory. Tell me how to cook this dish, right? So I can see a cookbook one with the I'm throwing my things. I can see a grandparent or something maybe doing that because they'll take the time to write it out by hand on a 3x5 card or something and just stashing them in there. Your recipe books.
Yeah, I also love the idea of getting to a place where I can do some sort of insert on the inside.
Okay.
Again, not a woodworker, so I need.
Now, when you say insert, are you talking about a divider?
Yeah,
or?
some sort of I've had people ask if they could put jewelry in there. I'm sure, but I don't know how to help you do that. So getting to a place where I can tailor what goes inside and kind of create, again, that structure for someone to put what they want in it.
It wouldn't be that hard. It definitely would not be that hard. So this feels like balsa wood, right?
Yeah.
Because it's so lightweight.
Yeah.
Balsa wood's super easy to cut.
Okay.
And you can get balsa wood probably in this thickness already.
Okay.
And literally it would just be wood glue and cutting to the sizes that you wanted. So like the structure for a jewelry box or something, like if you wanted to make different size compartments, like a long one for a watch and then like little ones, stuff like that, it really wouldn't be that hard to do.
Okay.
With balsa wood, because balsa wood's so easy to work with.
I'm afraid of tools in all senses. So
balsa wood, I mean, how handy are you with a razor blade? Are you worried about cutting yourself?
I mean, I probably should be worried about cutting myself.
Balsa wood's cool because you can score it with a couple times, like in the same spot with like a X-Acto knife or with an actual like a heavy duty razor blade. You could score it a few times and snap it and then just sand it down.
I can do that.
Yeah, balsa wood is pretty easy to work with. That's why so many craft things are based on balsa wood, just because it's so easy to work with, because it's not a tight fiber wood.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can literally just score it a couple times and then snap it.
Okay, now I know what I'm doing this afternoon.
And then get some wood glue.
Yeah.
And just a little bit of glue on the ends and kind of fit it. So I mean, the biggest thing would be just measuring.
Yeah.
How the dimensions, how long the piece needs to be, and then cutting it. It wouldn't be too hard at all.
Love that. Definitely that's my new goal.
There you go.
Exploring that.
Yeah. I was gonna say a certain niche I could see this fitting, just because it's become legal, is tons of weed stash boxes.
Yes.
I mean, people have had those for forever. You can still go to like Spencer's and stuff. That's where I was like, it would be like the funny kind of like humorous covers, things like that, right? Come up with some witty names.
I've got a burn after reading.
There you go.
So yeah, I mean, like realistically, that's what inspired everything. The name
now we
coming
get to
up
the
with
truth.
in 3.5 minutes, it was very obvious what it should be. So yeah, people always ask like, can it lock? Like, okay, I got to figure out how to make it lock. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you could make it lock. But again, being balsa wood,
it's gonna break.
Locking, it's not really gonna do
not
anything.
Effective.
Yeah.
No, but the fake tagline was stash books. You could put your weed in there.
Okay.
Decided to actually go with uniquely designed wooden keepsake boxes.
Probably better for the mass, for the masses.
Yeah. So yeah, that was the fake tagline. Yeah. So there it is.
See, you got to the origin story.
The real origin story only took a few hours.
Yeah, only a couple hours here. Yeah, we can start wrapping up. I don't know what your day looks like. We've been here for an hour and 40 minutes already.
Man,
did it feel like that?
It felt longer. No, I'm just kidding. It felt
usually it's like, oh man,
surprising.
Time went by.
Yeah.
Where can you, what's your contact information? What is your, Instagram, Facebook, all that good stuff? Yeah. Are you going to be anywhere soon for people that maybe live in the area? If they listen to this, could you go see you? All that good stuff. Website, all that. Plug yourself.
So my website is stashbooksbynicole.com. Instagram at stashbooks.bynicole. Same with Facebook. You can find my contact information on my website or Instagram for custom designs. And you can purchase traditional designs right on the website.
Awesome. Well, Nicole, thank you so much for joining me and talking about how you got into this. It's a great product.
Yeah.
I'm glad that your goal is to keep it fun still for you.
Absolutely.
Because I do think that there's a lot of burnout happening with just in the normal business world. But again, taking your hobbies, like this expectation, you're supposed to take it and turn it into a business. And then it's not the same thing that the reason you got into it, right? You kind of burn out from that. So I hope that you're able to keep it fun for yourself. And,
thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
No problem. Thanks, everyone, for listening to this episode of The Get Up. Make sure to go check out Nicole's sites, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening to The Get Up. Make sure to check out thegetupshow.com for more information on this episode's guest. While you're there, check out other episodes, leave a comment, or if you'd like to be a guest on a future episode, shoot an email to contact@thegetupshow.com. Don't forget to follow, like, and share on Facebook at The Get Up Show Podcast. follow on Instagram and Twitter at The Get Up Show, and subscribe to The Get Up YouTube channel. The Get Up is available on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, Google Play Music, YouTube, and anywhere you listen to your favorite podcasts.